Yo, it's Steve Shaheen. So recently, a few people have asked me how to play the clarity solo correctly. So here it is. So here's the breakdown. Playing a Gibson with EMGs, got EMG 81, 85, and we're playing in drop C tuning on a 6-string. Going into, we have an Ibanez TS808 hand-wired, my favorite tube screamer at the moment. So we're going the tube screamer into the JCM 2000 DSL50. And in the effects loop, we have the Decimator G-String, and we have an Echoplex preamp. Not the delay, but the preamp. And that gives me my lead tone. So it starts off with a couple bends, and then it goes into kind of an Yngwie Malmsteen style ascending scale lick. And it's something that Yngwie does all the time, is he goes up a scale on just one string. So this is that part. So something that Yngwie would do would be take any scale in any key and basically play it on one string. So what we're doing here is we're playing and then we're moving up a position and playing the same scale, and this is just a plain Aeolian scale or minor scale. So we got, and then we go up position, up another position. So and that's something that Yngwie does all the time also, so he goes into a really high bend at the end, and I always thought that was really cool, so I kind of used that for this section. So the next part, it's kind of a little blues lick, just a super easy pentatonic, a little pentatonic lick, and then it goes into kind of a Alexei Lyo tapping, kind of pentatonic tapping style lick. So it goes. This is something that Alexei does all the time, and you're basically doing. So, and it's also, if you were to use that and do that on one string, it would be kind of like a Paul Gilbert thing that he does all the time. Like, but in this case, we're going down. And then it goes into kind of my own 4-note progression that, and I got this sort of from listening to a lot of EDM music, and I like a lot of electronic music, just the things that you can learn from it and pull and bring into the style of guitar that I play. And so for this, we're just doing 4 notes in a row. And that's something that I like to do a lot. And it's basically, what you do is you use downward picks slanting, something that Zach Wilde does. Eric Johnson does this all the time, and even Andy Timmons does this for doing licks like. So you just slant the pick down just slightly so that every other pick stroke comes up, so you can change strings. So the first string, the first hit, this is kind of exaggerating a little bit, but every other pick stroke comes up so that you can change strings. Then change strings, then change back. So you can go as fast as you want basically, and you're never going to be running into strings when you change strings. So that's why Zakk Wylde and those guys use downward pick slanting. And it's, for this lick, it works out perfect. So from there, I go into another 4-note progression that is, and this time we're still doing 4 and we're ascending, but we're doing some sweep picking. And so it's 4 notes, ascending, and then we just do it over and over. And the trick is, when you get to the top, you got to start back at the first string, which is the 4th string down, and you need to make it smooth. And so a lot of guitar players, what they'll do for this is they'll use string skipping instead of sweeping. Guys like Andy James or Jeff Loomis would definitely do string skipping for this kind of thing, and it end up being, I don't even know if I can play it. And that's a great way to play it also, but I like the way that the sweep picking kind of gives you a groove, and so I love the groove of the sweep picking in this situation. And the string skipping version of that is a lot more mechanical, and it's more accurate, but it's almost just too mechanical. It's like too robotic in a way. So I like the musicality that you get from the sweeping. And then I go into another sweeping part here, 4 notes still. It's basically backwards. So instead of ascending, we're descending now. And same deal. So from there, I go into kind of like a Joe Satriani pick tapping kind of technique. And what I like about this is something that Joe Satriani does all the time, is he'll pick a random number of notes per phrase, but as long as he comes in on the accents, it sounds right. And so no matter how many notes he's throwing into a certain section, it makes it a lot more musical as long as the accents are on. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here. So from there we go into something that Kirk Hammett does all the time. It's kind of like a multiple bend thing, where he bends the same note over and over, and then from there another Kirk Hammett lick, which is basically some legato. And so here we go. So what we're doing for that, we do the bends a couple times, then we do the legato, where we're basically picking 1 time per every 3 notes, and we're just going down the minor scale here, or alien scale. So you start in one position, and you're moving positions down on the same string. And then from there, more of my own 4-note kind of progressions. And then for the last lick, it's kind of something that Zakk Wylde does all the time. It's basically like a makeshift dive bomb, but we're doing it on 2 different strings. So what we're doing is a double stop, the 1st and 2nd string on the 19th fret, and you bend up, then you tap the 19th fret, and then you bring the bend down, so you get a little kind of like a crazy dive bomb. And so at the end there, and this is something that Dimebag did all the time, but with the whammy bar, because Zakk Wylde doesn't use the whammy bar that often. He usually just plays the Gibson with you know, not with the whammy bar, basically. But Dimebag did this all the time with different bends and dive bombs, and he got that from Eddie Van Halen. He used to always do that. It was kind of his elephant lick, and I can't really do the elephant the way that he does it, but that's where it came from. And so that's the end of the solo.